Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum, and we know that it corrected some. Obviously, it's because Bitcoin had a slight retracement. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. We discussed exactly this possibility many times, right? We discuss it day in and day out. If Bitcoin has a correction, Ethereum will have a knee-jerk reaction to it. That's exactly what has happened so far. Bitcoin, let's actually switch this over to the hourly time frame so we can compare it to what Ethereum did. If you look at the retracement that Bitcoin had, and we're going to compare it to Ethereum. So Ethereum from the top of this, let's go from the top of the candle all the way down to the bottom of this wick, had about a 9% correction before bouncing back up some. Okay, what did Bitcoin do? We're going to look at the same thing for Bitcoin. So what it did was it went down about 6%. Now, this makes sense. What have we discussed at length? If Bitcoin corrects, Ethereum will likely have a knee-jerk reaction to it. And generally when Bitcoin volatility goes up, Ethereum volatility, if it's to the downside, if Bitcoin's going down, then Ethereum will likely bleed against Bitcoin and bleed against USD. So if it's bleeding against Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going down by a few percentage, then Ethereum's usually going down a bit more. And we've seen this phase of the cycle many, many times, right? We see this all the time. And as long as Bitcoin doesn't capitulate, Ethereum can recover quickly. Okay, from the bottom of the wick down here, it's already back up about 2.3% or so. Now, where we go from here is obviously dependent on Bitcoin. You know, we always discuss the different possibilities that could occur. Again, it always comes back to Bitcoin. Will Bitcoin capitulate to the 20-week moving average? Well, if it doesn't, then I think my interpretation is it's not financial advice by any means, but as long as Bitcoin doesn't say capitulate to the 20-week moving average, which is still a long way to go, as long as that doesn't happen, then there's nothing precluding Ethereum from just kind of picking back up where it left off. In fact, a lot of times corrections by Bitcoin that don't capitulate to the 20-week moving average can actually be a catalyst for Ethereum because it could signify the idea that, okay, maybe some momentum for Bitcoin's dying down a little bit. You give it a couple days. If the market can stay steady, then a lot of other cryptocurrencies can start to run. If you follow cryptocurrency for the last few months, you've seen this happen many, many times. Remember back in January, if you look at what happened for Bitcoin in January, from the first week here, let's go from the top of the wick down to the bottom of this wick by the end of January, Bitcoin retraced 32% from top of the wick to the bottom of the wick. However, during the same time period, what did Ethereum do? Let's go over to the weekly time frame. So during January, if you look at the Ether Bitcoin valuation and go from January 4th, so we'll go from the bottom up to the top of the last candle, it went up, or top of the last wick of that month, it went up 72%. So a lot of times these types of moves by Bitcoin can actually be a good thing for Ethereum, because if Bitcoin continues to push up week over week over week, then it doesn't give Ethereum the confidence that Bitcoin's going to let other cryptocurrencies have major moves. Yes, there's a lot of altcoins that have had a lot of crazy moves over the last few days, but it takes a lot more capital to move a cryptocurrency like Ethereum. So if Bitcoin's going up, it'll likely drag Ethereum up with it with respect to its USD valuation. However, Ethereum Bitcoin will often bleed if Bitcoin is going up quickly. And we've seen exactly that happen over the last few weeks, okay? Ethereum had a major move against Bitcoin in January. Starting in February, it has come back down. That doesn't necessarily mean the move is over. We've seen Ethereum trend up against Bitcoin for the entirety of Q1, as long as it has stayed above the 20-week moving average. However, it also implied that Bitcoin was not necessarily going into major price discovery mode. You can see in January of 2016, we rallied all the way until March before having a substantial correction, which took us down 60% back to the 20-week moving average. Okay, and we ultimately bounced and then ultimately fell back below. But it doesn't change the fact that the rally could extend for a decent period of time. And if you look at, say, the top of this wick down to the bottom of this wick, Ethereum actually had a retracement of around 55%. So if you guys think this market is crazy, imagine how it was last cycle when volatility was even higher. Remember, our thesis is that Ethereum is one market cycle behind Bitcoin. So this one lasted until March, and then we had one that started in 2016 that also lasted until March before having a major move back down. This one lasted until March 20th. So we had a move here that lasted until March. We had a move here that lasted until March. What's the thing in common that January, February, March, so the Q1 of 2016 and Q1 of 2017, what do they have in common? Well, if you go look at Bitcoin in Q1 of 2016 and Q1 of 2017, here's Q1 of 2016, Bitcoin was above the 20-week moving average, okay? And during that time, Ethereum was able to rally. What about Q1 of 2017? Well, again, Bitcoin was above the 20-week moving average. So here Bitcoin was above the 20-week. Here it was above the 20-week. What happened the following year? You can see that over here, sorry, let's go back to Ethereum USD. This one, the one we're showing right now is Ether Bitcoin, so we'll finish that one up. But if you look at, say, this move, it stopped in January of 2018. Why did it stop? It stopped because in January 2018, Bitcoin fell below the 20-week moving average. So the theory is that as long as Bitcoin is above its 20-week moving average, Ethereum could still theoretically have a decent move against Bitcoin, right? I mean, this is generally what the evidence shows. Let's keep going. What happened the following year in the Ether Bitcoin valuation? Well, you can see in 2019, we started coming back down. If you go look at Bitcoin in 2019, Q1 of 2019, let's go find it. It was actually below the 20-week moving average. And in March, Bitcoin got above it. But when we were below it, this is a completely different phase of the cycle. We're not below the 20-week moving average, so that's not even something we should consider at this point until the market conditions were to drastically change. And then last year, one of the things we noted, I think we maybe, so we had January 2016, January 2017. We covered those. We covered 2018. We covered 2019. And then we know in 2020, the move stopped in February. Why did it stop in February of 2020? Well, you guys know what happened. In February, Bitcoin fell below the 20-week moving average. So, Ethereum has had major moves against Bitcoin that can last for several months as long as Bitcoin does not fall below the 20-week moving average. The other thing that we've noticed in the past that's somewhat slightly different than this time is that in, say, January 2016, February, and March, Bitcoin was not by any means in price discovery mode. And then in 2017, it also wasn't in price discovery mode in Q1, right? Bitcoin didn't really go into price discovery mode until April. So to some degree, our current situation is unique because Bitcoin is above the 20-week moving average and it's continuing to push the upper limits and be in price discovery mode. So we don't fully know how Ethereum could react in that type of situation. However, if we go based on what we've previously seen, Ether USD will likely do well if Bitcoin is pushing up. And as long as Bitcoin is above the 20-week moving average, then theoretically Ether Bitcoin should still theoretically do okay. Okay? Now, as we said before, slight pullbacks in the price of Bitcoin, like we saw in January, can be good for Ethereum as long as it doesn't capitulate down to the Bitcoin bull market support band, which currently ranges from 25,657 up to 28,428. Okay, so a pretty big range there. Bitcoin's not currently close to it. Now, one of the things we discussed has been the idea that Ethereum is more or less biding its time before hopefully having a move of its own. We've seen a lot of altcoins make major moves. Ethereum has kind of been somewhat steady over the last couple weeks and hasn't had any major moves other than being dragged up by Bitcoin. We know the valuation on Ether/USD has pushed up, into the high 1800s. However, it only did that because Bitcoin is going into price discovery mode. It has actually been bleeding against Bitcoin so far for the last few weeks or so. Okay, since the very end of January we had this peak, and then we had in early February we had another major move up, and then over the last couple weeks you can see the Ether Bitcoin valuation has been bleeding. However, the theory here again is that if Bitcoin were to say have a slight pullback or go sideways, then Ether Bitcoin will likely continue its run, and it still could come. If you don't believe me that it's possible, let's go back and look at what happened in January of 2018. Okay, let's go back and look because we can look at what the data says. Don't take my word for it. So, in January of 2018, Ethereum was making, or in December of 2017, Ethereum made a nice move, and then it had a correction week, the week of the 18th of December. If you go look at Bitcoin at the same time period, in say mid-December of 2017, you can see the week of December 17th was a correction for Bitcoin. In the same manner, it was also a correction for Ethereum. However, despite the fact that Bitcoin was not able to put in a new all-time high after the week before, and it ultimately just turned it down, over these several weeks before it hit the 20-week moving average, Ethereum continued to rally during those weeks, right? It rallied the 25th, the 1st, all the way through the week of January 8th, and I think it peaked, as we showed before, on January 13th. During the same time, Bitcoin was heading down, and Ethereum didn't start coming back down until the week of January 15th, and even with that, you still would have had a couple weeks to sell Ethereum at over 12, around 1250 or so. So it did not really start coming down until the week of January 15th. What happened January 15th for Bitcoin? Well, at this point, it really broke below where it had been trying to find weekly support, right, at around $14,000. Okay, so it ultimately broke below $14,000 at that point, and once it did that, it went straight to the 20-week. You can see it had a wick to the 20-week and continued on down, and because it broke the 20-week on January 29th, the week of January 29th, this is the week of January 29th for Ethereum. Okay, so once it was evident, once it was crystal clear that Bitcoin was not holding the bull market support band like it had done every step of the way, the bulls for Ethereum no longer could overcome the bears. So it all goes back to the same thing. As long as Bitcoin does not capitulate to the 20-week and start testing it and maybe go below it, then the idea that Ethereum could have a nice move above 2K is still theoretically on the cards. Of course, there is no free lunch, right? You can't say that, this is an obvious thing that'll happen, because if we wake up tomorrow and Bitcoin is capitulated to 25K or something, then yes, of course, Ethereum USD will likely capitulate as well. However, if you do own Ethereum and say Bitcoin is able to stay well above its 20-week moving average for the next few weeks, then we would likely expect Ethereum to continue to do well, at least against USD, as long as Bitcoin's going up. And if Bitcoin is either bleeding or going sideways, then Ether Bitcoin will likely come back and start moving back up. So hopefully that explains my thoughts on the general situation. If you guys like the content, remember we have the premium list, we have the altcoin season sale. check out the link for that in the description below. You can lock in the lower rate. You get access to the weekly reports, the weekly premium videos, the Telegram alerts channel, the Telegram chat room, and the risk dashboard, and more. Check it out. Find the link for that in the description below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's go for 120,000 subscribers. Give the video a thumbs up. That'll wrap it up for the video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.